Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you learn all the ways to grow their firm, sharpen their skills, and have consistent increasing sales. I cover topics such as detaching from the emotional side of the sale, having paradigm shifts in the most important part of your business, which is the nucleus of your accounting firm, sales, and how to see an objection really as an asset and stop giving away your time for free for those that don't deserve it, so you can actually get paid your value and your worth and grow your top line revenue. You'll learn tips, sales strategies, as well as hear from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly the blueprint on how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is the CEO of TaxProMarketer and AdvisorProMarketer, the nation's leading marketing agency group serving accounting and tax pros and practices since 2007. He's also a member of Mensa, and Nate is a multi-year honoree of CPA Practice Advisor's Top 40 Under 40. He's also been published widely in industry publications and is the author and editor of 2 Amazon bestsellers. He's a father of 7 children, 4 of whom he and his wife adopted from overseas. So he has a lot on his plates, and he has also a few hobbies. So I'm very excited to welcome Nate Hagerty to the show. But before we welcome him to the show, I know this tax season was probably nuts, and it's crazy to think that so many tax pros and accounting professionals think that increasing their fees will lose them clients, resulting in lower revenue. And I know that everybody thinks that the way to get more clients is to discount fees, cave in, do some free work, and hope that a client will engage with you. But the accountants and tax pros I work with double their firm revenue by following a much newer and far simpler method. So if you want to see how those accountants and tax pros are doing this, then register for my brand new masterclass at theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. It's an investment of 43 minutes, but it will provide you a lifetime of increased revenue without working more hours or having to get more designations or qualifications. So once again, theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass to register and launch, and I'll see you there. Now, let's welcome Nate to the show. Welcome, Nate, to the show.
It is really good to be here, Michelle. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks for coming back to the show.
I just said thank you for having us.
But
like
it's just
the
you.
Royal we. It's the royal we. It's the royal me.
Yeah, but you are a team, and you have a team of 19 people. So I think using the word us is the right choice of words. But today we're going to talk about how the us team, how did you personally combat your staffing issues to double your revenue, and how accounting and tax firm owners can also combat their staffing issues so they can double their revenue, and how increasing revenue also solves a lot of your staffing issues. So very excited to have this conversation today because you shared so many unique things that you do with the team that I'm implementing slowly. Yeah, so I'm just very excited to have you here. And if you want to share with everyone what it is that you do and from your own words instead of just me reading your bio, I would love that if you want to share for 1 minute on that.
No, thank you, Michelle. So my team, I have 2 companies, TaxProMarketer and AdvisorProMarketer. AdvisorProMarketer is kind of a sub-brand with the same team, but just a different focus, a different population of clients. We work with tax professionals and kind of their various iterations in TaxProMarketer, and non-tax accountants in AdvisorProMarketer, but do a lot of the same kind of things, which is why we're, sort of sister companies. So all of it is sort of into one pot. So we're a marketing agency working with accountants and tax professionals. And I've been in the industry since 2003. I was the marketing director of a of a tax firm that grew from like, $50,000 a year of fee-based revenue to, 15 offices, multi-millions, hundreds of employees in the span of 10 years. And then I did coaching and consulting, and eventually got tired of my coaching and consulting clients not implementing. And so we started the marketing agency to be an implementation engine for accountants and tax pros. So that's kind of the genesis of the business. But along the way, and this is stuff that I don't really talk to accountants and tax professionals a lot about.
No,
there's been a lot of iteration and shift in how we handle the vision for our company and kind of the levers that help us to grow. Essentially, the first decade, maybe a little bit less than that, 7 or 8 years, this was a glorified freelance operation here, where we had like 3 or 4, 5 employees, and they were executing on my vision, and that was pretty much it. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, we figured out that, like, man, we really need to serve people even more effectively, and there's a lot of change happening. We need to staff up. So we had to raise our fees a little bit and move into a different kind of model where we really became a full service agency to the industry. And as we did that, we had to staff up. Our culture began to form, and it was no longer this sort of lifestyle business that, like, it's seemingly the great dream for a lot of people to just have a great business to support your lifestyle. And I do believe in that deeply, but I guess I wanted something more. And so as we shifted to this agency reality and our staff numbers grew, we figured out that culture and communication and the values of how we operate became pretty paramount. We discovered that there were unique things that we had been doing that we hadn't really codified. We hadn't put like SOPs around. And we started doing that and got so much feedback from our team. Our team started referring their friends to the point where now, like, so we're 15 years in now. We're a multi-million-dollar company in our various iterations. And we have like I have probably 5 or 6 names that I could turn to right like now if I wanted to hire them. They would love to work for me, and then many more because people are like really want to work here.
And so I think that's like how the tables turn for you, because I think a lot of people listening who own an accounting tax firm or their tax attorney that owns their own firm, the hardest part is finding good people.
Right.
And
let me say this.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
We don't pay top of market salary. And so looking at that, those two things operate in tension. A lot of people believe that to attract great people, you need to pay really well. Now, we don't pay bottom of market salary. I care about my people, but we don't pay top of market salary. So there's something there. And that's what we have started to like talk about and think about. Me and my COO are actually starting to think about like doing some coaching around this stuff, because we've realized what we've built is pretty unique. And I think that's why you and I are talking, because it sort of came out offhandedly in a phone call.
Yeah.
And you said, let's talk about this on a podcast. And I said, okay.
Yeah. And I think, this soft stuff, as you call it, is probably the most important thing. And, I think you mentioned one thing earlier that I do want to bring up, because it's an area that a lot of accounting professionals, tax professionals struggle with, which you said you had to raise your fees a little bit before you could start making these changes. And I'm sure it was terrifying a little and all that. So maybe you can share a little bit on step 1, which is you have to raise your fees a little bit in order to start implementing some of this juiciness you're going to share without having to pay the staff top market value, but you're delivering culture and you've got a waiting list of 5 people that want to come work for you. I think every person listening would be in heaven to have a waiting list of people that want to work with them, so they can take a lot of the burden off their shoulders, get some of this tedious work off their plate, and have a team, even if it's 1, 2, or 3 people. But to get them, how do the firm owners make that first shift, which is raising their fees a bit like you did, in order to create some of that extra revenue to then implement what we're going to talk about today.
It's funny. I mean, these things are pretty cross industry in their dynamics. I'm in one serious peer group of other marketing agencies. It's actually the largest marketing agency peer group in the United States. And marketing agency owners have the same issues with fees, the same issues with feeling like they cannot find staff, feel like they have to pay six-figure salaries for good people. And they even in people feel that way even in sub markets, right? Not San Francisco or New York City or what have you.
Yeah, like Kentucky or Arkansas.
Right. So a lot of it, I would actually go even further before the raising of the fees. That is an important step that people need to become comfortable with. And the first step is something that I think you help people a lot with, Michelle, and that is the decision to not have your entire business run through you.
Yep.
And that's a tough thing. There's a lot of reasons why people don't feel comfortable doing that from the beginning. You know, people, they have fear issues, they have control issues, they've got identity wrapped around the success of their business. And if you are bringing all the questions of your soul to your business, then it's going to be really hard for you to let go and bring people into your world in a healthy way. So I actually think like the first step is not having everything go through you.
Yep.
But even before that, the way that people can get comfortable with that is realizing what is keeping them from like these decisions to delegate, to do whatever, to bless their employees or what have you. A lot of it comes down to like how they see themselves in relation to their work. And that's got to be a question that, you know, every person has got to answer for themselves.
Yeah. You or I, we can't fix that.
Right.
Dealing with fear, control, identity, and all the things Nate mentioned. That's a personal choice decision that you get to say, yep. I'm fed up with, I'm done, and you're going to decide to do something completely different. You're ready for a 180.
Yeah.
Then when you're ready for a 180, second step, I'm going to guess, is you got to raise your fees from wherever they're at.
It's true. And it's great because our industry is in a moment, and maybe the cultural economic cycle is in a moment where it's not as scary to raise your fees because everybody else is right now.
That's true too. Yeah. I mean,
so you've got a built-in excuse. I'm not. When we're recording this in spring of 2022, so it depends on when people are listening. But we happen to be in an inflationary cycle right now. So
yep.
We'll see how long that lasts. So you got to keep up with inflation first of all, and a lot of accountants understand that. So that's like one simple little thing that might push you over the top.
What did you do when you raised your fees? Did you just say, all right, across the board, it's going to this?
No.
Did you have a little process?
We had a process.
Okay. Is it simple?
When we onboarded new clients, we just started out with the higher rate. But I had always been very leery of raising fees on existing clients who are paying us like a monthly retainer to do various marketing tasks for them. Mm-hmm. And what I did was we had like 3 or 4 or 5 different kinds of sort of levels of service that we were providing our clients. And so I gave them a 60-day notice, and I sent an email and I said, Mr. Jones, right now you're at X dollars a month. And, starting in the following billing cycle on this date, your fee will automatically raise by whatever it was. And we did an analysis of all of our clients of like how long they'd been with us, what we were doing for them, and just got them into the right rate. It took some work to do this.
Of course.
So if we don't hear from you, this is what will be. You also have an option to upgrade your level of support at a one-time discounted rate. The rate for that is going to be this, in 60 days, but you can get in here and we'll lock it in for at least a year to have us serve you at this upgraded level at a discounted rate. So just reply back to the email if you want that. Or, of course, you can cancel. That's another option if this is not something that you want to keep with. And we gave them 3 choices. So stay at the same, do nothing, have their price raised automatically, cancel, or upgrade at a discount. And that actually worked really, really well. We lost, so at the time we had like 350 clients.
Yep.
And we lost, I think, like 15 or so. But we gained, it was about a $15,000 per month profit increase.
Wow.
So it really helped. Now that we did that about 2 or 3 years ago. But we started raising prices on new clients even before that. So it was a process, right? So
yep.
So yeah, this is like one of the things that you love to talk to people about.
This is my number one thing. Yeah. I have.
What do you think of our process? Does it line up what you guys do?
Yeah, I think your process is good, and I think for every accounting firm owner or bookkeeper or tax resolution experts or tax attorneys or tax planners and people with just their basic 1040 service, there's so many different ways you can go about it that you and I would be here for a whole 8 hours. And that's really a big piece of what I cover in our 8-week sales mastery training. It's one of the first steps. First, like you said, you have to accept or what I call admit you have a problem and you're sick of it and you're ready to do something different and you're willing to set the fear to the side because it's not going to go anywhere. I'm sure it was still terrifying. You're like, oh God, I got to send this email to 350 of my current clients with these 3 different options. But this is a similar process for them as well. And, for the firm owners, there's one woman in particular, I'll call her Judy right now. Just, I'm going to have her on the show. We're going to do a case study on her because she was, I don't even know if the word terrified is the word for it, but frightened, anxious, like thought I was absolutely berserk and nuts, but she still did it and she still trusted me in it. And her revenue, I think it's about the same. I think she's up maybe 12 or 15,000 for the tax season of profitability. And her goal was to decrease clientele by 40%, to shed and prune that amount of volume. And that's about where she's at. So imagine increasing revenue by like what you did, around the same. Let's just call yours is monthly. Yeah, hers is monthly clients from accounting and bookkeeping, but also one-time stuff for. Yeah, and I mean, just even a one-time, but you got 40% of your time back.
No doubt. Oh my God.
That's huge.
That's awesome. What a story. What a testimony to your coaching, Michelle. That's awesome.
And really all the coaches are, like you said, you maybe want to coach around this stuff. We just help you get to the top of the mountain and get there. Because most people would just get up halfway, turn around, start going back down.
Yeah.
So this is to get through those things that are hard, those stumbling blocks, the, whatever you're stumbling, sticks if you're up the mountain or boulders rolling down on you. It's that overwhelm where we're just like, I'll wait till next year. This staffing issue I'll deal with. It's not that big of a deal. When really, in reality, it is for so many people. So I'd love to hear what that next third step is.
Right. So we actually are a part of this digital marketer group. It's called Digital Marketer, and it's like the largest conference for online marketing in, I think, the world. It's the Traffic and Conversion Summit. And we were kind of in their highest level mastermind group in like 2015 when they started talking about vision and values. And it's kind of a cliche, right? And at least for those of us who are paying attention to like business thought leader type things. And a lot of us, myself included, sort of rolled their eyes and tuned out at these sort of soft things that people would say really matter. Because what I is a marketing guy, and a lot of accountants and tax pros are probably like this. Like, I just want to serve my clients. I want to have a great business and, have a couple people on my team, bring home X amount of dollars, whatever it is, be happy. But again, we had shifted into building like a more of a going concern type, thing. So we were starting to pay attention to this. And so they shared theirs, and we decided, okay, let's just try this and put down on paper what we are already talking about with our small at the time team.
Yeah.
And it was like magic started happening when we started doing this, because we started having these conversations in our weekly team meetings, and we've leaned into it more and more and more, so that now, I've recorded like a 40-minute video on our vision and values. Whenever we onboard a new employee, I make them watch it, and then we carve out a time for every team meeting to talk about something related to these things. And so we have like 4 vision points, 6 values, and then 7 values and 6 culture points. And the vision is, where are we going?
Okay.
Like, what's our target? And for us, I won't share all of them, but one of them is like, we're the leading marketing agency for tax and the tax and accounting industry, right? So that's who we are. That's where we're going. But another one of the things is that we are a cohesive, loving team of experts who fights for each other and covers over one another's mistakes. And so that's where we're going. I want to build my team into their expertise and fight for them, so we don't throw each other under the bus. If like one of our teammates makes a mistake in a thing, like with our client, we're gonna tell the truth, but we're not gonna like blame shift. Ultimately, like, all the mistakes fall upon me as the CEO and the leader of the company. So like, I will take the blame ultimately. So we start talking about those things. And then the values is like how we're going to get there. And the culture points are, what's the atmosphere of how we're going to get there. And we added those culture points because we've not seen anybody do that, but we wanted to name some of the things that were important to us, that if we didn't name them, they would just sort of happen under the radar. And so what we found is these values, like for instance, one of them is forgiveness before permission.
Is that we're talking, can you give some examples of the value points first and then
That's
the culture?
What this is.
Okay.
This is a value. This is a value point. So again, the vision, where we're going, the value, how we get there. So one of them, let's say like our first one is good enough and the perfect is the enemy of the good. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we want to orient towards execution over getting every I dotted and T crossed. Yeah. Which, like if you take that to an extreme, like we don't want to put out sloppy work. So we have to talk about that. We talk about this with our team. But we hire a lot of perfectionists and workaholics, and they are going to be oriented towards like trying to make everything look amazing before they even do anything with it. And we want them to
do something with it, even if it's at 99%. It doesn't need to be at 101%.
Exactly. And so that leads to the second value, which is forgiveness before permission. In other words, we want our team to have an entrepreneurial mindset and like solve issues before they even bring them to us. And instead of just asking permission to make any sort of innovation or what have you. Now that requires of us that we actually do extend forgiveness if they do something crazy. So it puts some pressure on the leader too. Another value is that's related: find the way before escalating. And in other words, don't just bring problems up the chain, bring solutions. So we have to talk about what that looks like when you raise a client issue to me or to somebody under me who's a manager type in the organization. Like the person has to like make sure that they've like come up with 2 or 3 possible solutions, or if they can't come up with one, explain what they looked for and why they looked for it and why they still can't figure it out and why they need help. And so that changes dynamics when people actually execute on this. It like takes away so much resentment that happens that are like, it's the grinding in the gears of teams when you actually teach people how to communicate well. And so like some of that requires understanding, when do you send a text message? When do you send an email? When do you make a Basecamp project? When do you like chat in a campfire or a Slack channel or whatever you use. And we've named all those things, and it's just like that, naming those processes and the protocols puts the guardrails down in which joy can occur. It's like putting the train tracks down so the train can go as fast as you want it to go, right? And it really helps. And so we found as we've named these things, and most people don't take the time to really train to how do we communicate with one another? What do we do when somebody makes a mistake, right? Like, how do we handle that? Like one of the things that we have, a lot of people talk about family first, but that's a bunch of crap. We all make decisions that are not family first, right? Mm-hmm. Like going on a work trip, you are by definition putting your family to the side so you can do a work trip. So it's not family first always, right?
Right.
So our spin on that is that our work does not primarily define our identity. So it's important, but it's not everything of who we are. And so there's some people that don't have a family, right? There's single people. There's people who are widowed or what have you. Anyway, once we have named this stuff and talked about it.
So you have 7 of those points that you talk about in your weekly meetings.
Yep.
I think a lot of people listening have a firm with maybe an admin and, another CPA, another bookkeeper.
Sure.
Like this would be shared with everybody on the team. Yep.
Including contractors, by the way. And, we don't like push our contractors through like the whole thing, but like they know what we're about, and we train them on our communication protocols at a minimum. Yeah. And so the cultural points are the last little pieces that we talked about. Okay. And like one of them is we don't need or try to imitate corporate culture. So we're not going to unnecessarily lard ourselves down with SOPs for every freaking thing, right? Like we want to be able to create space for innovation. So like we lean in another cultural point, and I'm not going to share all of them, but like this one is we lean into encouragement, recognition, and trust. And so we just really wanted to name that when somebody does something awesome, we're going to talk about it. We're going to recognize when they've solved a thorny issue, and we're going to let people lead stuff that we might feel like we would do a better job in, but like we're going to let them grow and trust them. So this actually has made an enormous difference. And it's a big part of why I think a lot of our clients, our employees refer their friends. I mean, I've got employees that have been with me 12, 13 years. And I haven't like given them massive raises over the years. I've just created a place that feels like it's family.
Yeah. So what are some of the other things that maybe we haven't talked about that could really stand out once an accounting firm, tax firm owner listening sits down, probably after tax season, just being honest, right? Which you're listening to this after tax season. So you can spend an hour today thinking about the vision, the values, and then this cultural piece.
Well, let me say one or two more things about that, the vision and values. When you're building them, I found like there's the entrepreneur operating system that a lot of people go by. You know about that one, Michelle, right? Like traction and they have a core value thing. What I've got a lot of friends who use that to run their business and do really well, but they share with me their vision and values, and a lot of them are really airy, cliche, generic, and it just feels like an exercise for the sake of doing an exercise. I encourage you, listener, if you're going to do this, be as specific and fresh as possible as you do it. Yeah. Avoid cliche, and like for instance. A cliche that a lot of people use, and I sort of alluded to it, work family, right? We're going to be a family. Okay. Well, here's the deal. You don't fire somebody from your family, right? Like that creates weird codependency. That creates weird pressure to say that, John Jones CPA employee is a family. No, hopefully you're a well-functioning, healthy team. You can get cut from a team. You can grow in a team. But like family, that creates just weirdness, right? So avoid these kind of cliches that haven't been actually thought through. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, because if they're on the team, you can get cut just like in the NFL, but they're not family where if they get fired,
you can't fire your
when
brother.
a new coach comes.
Even if your brother is a dick, excuse my language.
Yeah.
But like, he's gonna still be your brother, right?
Exactly.
So,
you're stuck with him no matter what. That's
right.
the family. This is still a choice of who you're going to have on your team.
Right. I mean, you're paying your employees. It's a mutual exchange of value, right? There's dignity in that, but it's not a lifetime commitment. So the other thing that we did a couple years ago, there was a big risk. We started this 3 years ago. There's a friend of mine who runs a coaching company on productivity. His name is Sean Blanc. And he has a course on focus and margin. If you Google the focuscourse.com, we can have Michelle, if you can get that in your show notes at some point. I'd love to send people Sean's way. And he's got a fairly significant footprint in kind of the coaching and kind of like digital creator world. So a lot of people in our industry don't necessarily know of him, but he's kind of a personal friend that I've known here in Kansas City. And he started an experiment about 5 years ago based on when he went to Basecamp. Are you familiar with the software Basecamp?
Yes. Okay,
so he went. They would put on these conferences called the Basecamp Way to Work. And like Jason Fried, who wrote Rework, is one of the founders of Basecamp. And they put on these conferences so people can see what they do. There's like 50 employees at Basecamp, and they manage a user base of like 300,000. And they're like a huge company. I think they're like 50-60 million in revenue, maybe more. And their product is really good, but they limit themselves in how awesome it is. And I could go into great detail about that. But Sean went and he learned about their 8-week cycle of sprints and how they organize those. And so he started implementing that, and he got me to implement that. And then he added a significant twist. So I can't take the credit for this. This is Sean's brainchild. And that is to add a paid week off at the end of each sprint. And so what it turns out is there are 8 weeks and 7 weeks of work, 1 week of rest. And we call it the sprint sabbatical rhythm. And the reason why we decided to do this is, number one, we wanted it for ourselves. Like me and my COO wanted this for ourselves and our family. Felt a little icky just doing it for us and not our entire team.
Yep.
We wanted the refreshment and rhythm, and we wanted to see what it would be like if we actually separated our company out into 2 teams and made this work for everybody. And could it actually create a cross-training environment so that there's just even more unity? Now, we might not get as much done during those times. So what we do is our company is split up into 2 teams, and one team will take a week off while the other is kind of covering their tasks. And then the next week, the team that was covering takes a week off while the other team that had been off covers their tasks, right? And so from our client standpoint, they actually don't know that we even do this. I'm going to start talking about it more openly, but we have doubled our revenue since we decided to do this.
Yeah, I love that.
We've discovered that an 80-20 rule really actually played into what was happening.
My favorite book, the 80-20 principle.
Yes. There was some massive benefits that we didn't even realize were going to accrue. Cross-training being number one. Now, if we have an employee who for whatever reason, life circumstance change, needs to step away from the team, although I haven't lost an employee in years, there's people who are cross-trained on what they do. I have redundancy in every part of my business. I'm never more than 7 weeks away from a break. Spouses love us. And recruitment is so crazy easy because there's no company does this sort of thing.
Right.
And so it equates to about 7 weeks of paid time off. But a lot of people offer unlimited time off, and what that translates to is Christmas and New Year's, and people never take their time off. But when you enforce it, staff gets refreshed on this regular rhythm, and we come back ready to rock. I'm actually in the week last week was a sabbatical for me, and I am like
Wow.
full of vim and vigor for what I want to do.
Yeah, that's
And I
awesome.
get that
Perfect timing for this podcast. I can
Yeah,
tell.
yeah,
He's excited.
yeah. So, this is a whole thing that we're going to start developing kind of some training around, and because it's a pretty dramatic thing. We shared this with our peer group in the marketing agency world, and I've got about 10 agencies that I'm helping them walk through, like putting this into their world, and it's already made a huge difference for them. So, again,
I'm all about this.
what staff member is going to leave a company that gives them this, right? So
Especially getting paid at the, not top pay, but middle of the way or a little bit higher above middle.
Yeah.
But 7 weeks of enforced time off and having a clear, I am all about the ask for forgiveness later program, and that there are no rules, and we'll figure that piece out when like a lot of people say they want that or they provide it in their firms or companies, and it's really not.
Right.
Everyone's walking around on eggshells with their mouth shut.
Yes.
And you've provided, like you said, this culture of joy.
Right.
And
so when you make the choices like the sabbatical does, what I found is it embodies some of these values in ways that just talking about it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
Like we've kind of put our money where our mouth is, and they start owning it a lot more. They start feeling the dignity of their role, that I care enough about them to give them that time. Like for part-timers, what we do, by the way, is like we do an average of their last quarter, like weekly pay, and just give that to them. So it sort of evens out the ups and downs of if they do more one week or another. We have, I have 19 employees, 20 of us total, and probably 12, I don't know off the top of my head, I think 13 might be full-time and the rest part-time. So for the part-timers, it's like an amazing thing because usually part-time workers get time off and they don't get paid, right? So it's a totally awesome thing for them. It embodies these values in ways that like I could talk about them until I'm blue in the face, but like letting them feel the dignity of having this. Like I onboarded a new assistant. We don't give it to them within the first 3 months when we hire. Like we do like a probationary period whenever we hire somebody to make sure like it's good for them, good for us, whatever. So a new assistant that I have just had her first sabbatical, and she was like texting me or posting stuff in Basecamp on projects she was doing. I had to be like, "You are on sabbatical.
Yeah,
Stop.
We'll see you in a week."
Yeah. And she was like, I was like,
feels weird.
Yeah, it felt weird.
Yeah, I bet.
She loved it.
That's awesome. Well, Nate, thank you so much for taking out the time to share this with everyone. I think now is a great time to implement this so you can combat your staffing issues and maybe see it's not only about the hours worked and the dollars you pay. And there's a lot of little elements that can really keep people doing great work, but not being perfectionists like you were sharing, and being able to have other ways to double your firm revenue. So thank you, Nate, so much. It's always an honor to have you here. This is a great topic for today.
Thank you.
And how can people find you in case they want help on, getting some leads?
Sure. Yeah. We're at TaxProMarketer.com, or if you really want to be very special and never talk about taxes with your clients, go to AdvisorProMarketer.com. But either way will bring us to the same team, and we can figure out like your target market focus either way. We have a free membership there. We got a bunch of resources and materials, recordings of webinars, what have you, that you can grab, and you can figure out a time if you want to meet with me or my team. That's great. But it's an honor, Michelle. I love what you were doing and what you're building, and kind of your approach is very refreshing in the industry. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll have you back again, hopefully very soon.
Okay. Thank you.
What an amazing episode with Nate Hagerty. Remember to go to his website. You can book a call if you're interested in wanting to get some more leads. But really, how can we create a culture of joy? And I talk a lot about putting ourselves first and making sure that we take care of ourselves in order to be able to take care of your staff and your clients and your team and your families and your significant others. And yet, this is the point that most people will let slip. And I think the corporate culture or company culture or firm culture that you put together with your vision and your values and implementing some sort of sabbatical, if you can't do 7 weeks on, 1 week off, 7 weeks on, maybe there's something in the middle you can implement. But how can you create a culture of joy today? Because joy and building this culture will help double your firm revenue. I promise you, it's worked for not only me, but others. And, I think I did an episode with Mark Schnoll here a while ago, but he has a $1 million CPA firm. They take vacations during tax season on rotation. He has a vacation, or he went on vacation mid-March. His staff goes on vacation during tax season to get a break, to recharge, to come back to deliver better service and better quality work for our clients. And that's really what it is. Burning the candle at both ends isn't going to cut it. Being burnt out isn't going to do you any good or anyone else, because then you're going to want to throw in the towel and maybe go get a job. Or if you're in a job, you're like, oh, doing a firm is not for me. And I want to share, I have a brand new masterclass. So if you want to see how Mark and others are doing this so they can double their firm revenue using a much newer and far simpler method, make sure to go to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. It's an investment of 43 minutes. Have a pen and paper, take notes. But this will provide you a lifetime of increased revenue without working more hours or having to get more designations or qualifications or CPEs or anything like that. And how you can really implement putting yourself first, which I talk about in the 43 minutes, so you can create a culture of joy. So once again, make sure to register, grab a pen and paper, theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass, and I'll see you there.